Okay, so this is that Squirrel tutorial video I promised like 6 months ago. Yeah. Whoops, that took a while. Anyway, what you're seeing here is like a tiny screen grab of Fruit Loops. And instead of wasting your time starting a brand new song, I'm just cheating a little and using the Atlantean song that you've heard in the YouTube demo already from like CCAG last year. But anyway, all I do is I use Fruity Loops to make a MIDI file, and then we use that to do the rest of our stuff for Squirrel. It's a nice little shortcut because I avoid using trackers because I don't really like them. They're not very intuitive to me. This is better. I like this better. Anyway, what you're seeing here, this is chip32. It's a free VST you can use to draw waveforms, and it's called chip32 because it's a 32-byte waveform, and that's what the PC Engine uses. So we can get some rough approximations of stuff. So right here, I know this is my bass channel. I've drawn some goofy-looking sine waves. It's gonna sound goofy probably, but all you do is you hit play and just listen. Anyway, that's all there is to that. So you just use it to get a rough approximation of what your song's going to sound like. It's not perfect, and there's no utility to extract these chip32 things and use them in Squirrel, so remember, it's just approximation. So the next thing we do, you can't see it here because I've only got a tiny piece of Fruity Loops grabbed, but you click Tools, you can see a little bit of it here. You click Macros, and down here, oh, we got lucky. You click Prepare for MIDI Export, and then you click OK, and now it's going to be MIDI, so if we play it now, it's going to sound really hilarious. The reason you're hearing this weird dun-dun-dun-dun-dun that doesn't sound like it actually fits anything is because it also converted the drum channel, which is this middle one. The VST maps like the C key and the D key to the kick snare, or the kick and the snare. So when it converts it to MIDI, it is using a C and a D, which aren't drums anymore, they're piano notes. So basically you're going to hear goofy nonsense, but if you turn that off and hit play, it sounds like what we want. But that's okay. We can use the notes from the drum channel, this right here. The beat will be fine, it's just the notes will be wrong, but that doesn't really matter, and you'll see why in a little bit. So now that we have this, we pretty much don't need Fruity Loops right now. So the next thing we do is we open this file, the program. This is called 3MLE, it stands for the Mabinogi MML editor. It's used, Mabinogi is an MMO that still uses MML today. That's kind of a tongue twister. So MML is still in use today by something besides what we're doing. So this is proof that it isn't outdated and terrible, because they're still using it. That's why we have this really awesome program. This is actually probably better than a tracker, to be honest. Anyway, you just click Import Standard MIDI File, and we can pick this. And when you get to this menu, you'll see the channels here from the MIDI, and a couple extra things that didn't show up in Fruity Loops, but are part of the MIDI file, which is like data and stuff. It's going to get imported, it doesn't affect anything. And then you note this quantization settings section. I pick 1/64th note, or 64th note, however you want to say that. Fractions are confusing. Just pick this, it's the most precise, but if you notice your song is missing notes, or something's not lined up right, try a different quantization setting. So now that we import it, the first thing you should always do next is listen to it and make sure it sounds like you want. And step one to that is, in this case, we mute the drum channel because we don't want to hear that stompy piano noise that doesn't match anymore. So we just listen now. Okay, so that sounds right. Another great thing here is you see this is the piano roll just like in Fruity Loops, so you can kind of spot check. So like in Fruity Loops, if I go to the bass channel, you can see the all the notes. You can actually spot check. and you can see it go like down, up, down. You can make sure when you're in 3MLE that it's the same stuff, make sure everything looks right, and it's a great way to visualize what all is actually happening with MML. And you see here down, if the MML itself is right here, and it matches this piano roll up top. So if you highlight this, you'll see the little white indicator bar follows. Whoops! It helps if I do it right. It follows along with the notes, even rests. Rests show up as little blank pieces. You'll see it follows along, so you can actually use this to even learn MML and understand what all you're doing. It really helps just to be able to see it like this. But one thing you might notice right now is this is a big ugly blob of text. You're like, oh, what is that? 3MLE has this cool feature called Optimized Track, and now you see all that nonsense is gone. We just have notes. No phony business. There's a slight catch to that. Mabinogi isn't fully standard MML. They have a couple extra features that normally don't come into play. One of which is like these little numeric shortcut codes that it uses to do octave shifts. So, like, you know, if you're doing like Blue Monday from New Order, you'll hear, you know, the octave shifting bass line, things like that. Sometimes it'll put these little shorthands into the octave shift for you. So if you ever notice while you're listening to your song, if it sounds right in 3MLE, and then you copy the notes over and you listen to it on the turbo, and it suddenly sounds all gooned up and it's a complete mess, go through and check and see if weird little numbered codes that aren't mentioned in the Squirrel manual, see if they show up. If that's the case, you're going to have to, unfortunately, go in and hand edit that little section to put the notes back the right way. But on the bright side, because there's a piano roll, you can visually see where stuff is screwed up. So if you spot check, it's a great way just to go, oh, there's the problem, and you can fix it. But what we're going to do here, we're just going to grab all these notes, and we're ignoring the L16 and the O2. We don't need them, and I'll show you why. So next, we open this. I'm using Notepad++. I suggest you do the same, because it's freaking sweet text editor. It's free, it's awesome. So step one, you'll see Squirrel demo video thing. This is a comment. These little semicolons here indicate a comment. You can put anything you want there, so you can leave notes to yourself, like, I like China Warrior. Who doesn't? But anyway, step one when you make a new file is you always have .track 0. Your tracks have to start at 0. You can't do track 0 and then go, oh, track 95. They're sequential, so 0, then 1, then 2, and these are your track numbers. So we start at 0 because it's a computer, that's what it does. Next is channel 0, and you'll see I've labeled it here. It's the setup channel. You can call this whatever you want, so we can call it, you know, banana peel. It doesn't matter. You'll see T80 is tempo 80. Really, the song's tempo is 160, but the turbo plays everything twice as fast. So divide the tempos by, like, divide them in half, you get T80. You know, 80 is half of 160. So if you ever notice your tempo is too fast, just split it in half. It's probably the problem. V31 is the global volume. The max is 31, so we've got it as loud as possible. L16, this is why we didn't grab it out of the 3MLE editor. L16 is the default note length, so L length. We're setting it to a 16th note. So that means if you don't specify the length of a note, you will always assume it's a 16th note, and it'll do that for you. So basically, you make this whatever note is the most common in your song to save on space. The next thing, the little caret D0, ignore it. It's for if you're going to do crazy advanced tempo stuff, and you don't need to worry about that right now. So, moving on. Next we have channel 1. This is our first actual musical channel where stuff happens, and I've called it the bass, because it's going to be the bass. And you see O2, which is why we didn't grab the O2 from before, because it's already there, got it here. This O2 is octave 2, so it's a low octave for our bass note. You pick whatever octave you want. But make sure, now we're about to get to the panning, but before that, make sure you read the Squirrel manual at least a little bit, so you can see all of the different commands that MML supports, because otherwise you're just guessing, you don't really know what any of the stuff's doing, you're just winging it until it sounds right. But if you know what the commands are, it can really help you, you know, go places without banging your head on the keyboard. So anyway, P is panning. Each channel has stereo panning. There's a left and a right channel. So the maximum is 15, so I've got it at 14, 14. So the left channel is 14, the right channel is 14. It's a little bit below max. Next, we have @19. The @ is how you pick a waveform, like your preset, your voice, you know, like when you've got those Casio keyboards you can play with. If you push a button and it's like, oh, this is preset 4, and you get some like harpsichord. This is the same kind of concept. We've got preset 19, and that's our waveform. And this one I found is like it's a sine wave. It's kind of bassy, so I like it. I keep it. I use it for all the bass stuff I do. The next thing, @E, is how you define an envelope. That's a way to allow you to shape the notes and any of the voices you're using. And I've found that envelope 1 with waveform 19 makes a really punchy bass. So that's why I chose to use it. So all we do is we paste our notes in, just like this. There's all of them. It's big blob of text. But we already heard it in 3MLE and we know it sounded okay. So what we do now is we run this make file. It's in your Squirrel directory. You should have one too. So you'll see here it's MML to PCE. That calls the compiler we've provided for you, and you feed it the target MML file. In my case, it's in the MML folder, and it's called level2.mml, and that's relative to the folder that this batch file sits in. So you'll see here's the MML folder. There's a bunch of stuff in there, but here's level 2. It's the one we're using. So if we run this, it should build it, and we should immediately hear bass notes. Now the only thing here is your make file probably doesn't automatically launch an emulator. I set mine to automatically launch Mednafen. So in that case, you know, you'll get this little PCE ROM. You just double click it. And you just run it. Like mine default to open up in Utaki if I double click them. But we know our sound is good, so the next thing we can do, we'll add in a lead real quick here. So here's our lead channel. And this time we'll just grab the whole thing. We won't even do the optimizing. So we got our lead here. Again, we're on channel 2. I've called it lead A. Just paste it in. And you'll be like, oh, what's all this crap? These big /star things, these are comments for Mabinogi. It's each measure, which is actually kind of convenient. You can look at everything on a measure per measure basis. But we don't want them. Squirrel doesn't support them, so we have to kill them. And you'll notice I just picked this whole column here. That's why I told you to use Notepad++. You hold Alt and Shift, you can take the mouse and click and highlight whole columns like this. It's pretty awesome. But so you just grab them all and delete them. Bam. Now we're good to go. We can leave it just like this, and now we should hear a lead kick in after a certain point. There's like the bass build up before the lead kicks in. But anyway, so let's run this. So there you go. Now you've got lead. Look at that. We're already like pretty much done with this stuff. Now what I do here, I guess I probably forgot to mention it. You have to plan ahead when you make Fruity Loop songs. The PC Engine only plays 6 channels, so don't make like a 9-channel song and go, oh, why doesn't it work? Well, duh, it only plays 6 channels. So you'll notice here there's 5 channels. The reason is because on the lead I always usually echo it, so it's going to take 2 channels to do the echo, which is what we're going to do now. So what you do is you just grab the lead stuff again, or delete it because you hit the wrong key. Don't do that. So you just grab it like that, and we'll go to channel 3, and I've already got it called lead echo. You just paste it in again, and now it's an echo. So we're going to add maybe a 16th note rest. Now the catch is, any channels that aren't echoing, make sure you compensate for this rest. Otherwise, every time you loop the song, it's going to fall out of sync, because any channel that didn't echo will not catch up, and everything will slowly bleed out of sync with every time you loop through the song, and that would suck. So you just, any channel that's not having an echo, put a rest at the end. That's the same length as the rest you use to create the echo, and you should be good to go.